What is TBRI? I gave you Dr. Cross's quote, but I want to give you some foundational, the lens in which we look at TBRI when we talk about what is TBRI. And so what we talk about is the TBRI is attachment-based, trauma-informed, whole child, multi-systemic, and evidence-based, okay? And I'm gonna walk us through each of these to give you a little bit more information. So I'm gonna ask you a question. Somebody just say it out loud, and I'm gonna repeat it. What is these words on the screen mean to you? What does it mean? Just don't overthink it. What does it mean?
Gotta be connected.
You gotta be connected. What else? Family. What else? One more. Safe adults matter a whole lot. A securely attached child will store an internal working model of a responsive, loving, caring, nurturing caregiver, adult who's right in front of them. Okay? So when we talk about TBRI being attachment-based, this is what we say often, is if the harm, think about your babies. Think about the parents, the caregivers. Think about the staff at the organization. Think about your own personal history. We say often, Dr. Purvis would say often, if the harm happened in relationship, then the healing happens in the context of relationship. That's it. One of the things I say often about that is we have to take it from an attachment-rich approach. I'll give you an example. One of our kids in residential, they got off the bus, and just as soon as he got off the bus, he was 12 at the time, he ran up. Y'all have had this experience, right? Your kids run up to you and say, he said, Mr. Daren, Mr. Daren, Mr. Daren, let me tell you about my day. This was before TBRI. We didn't understand this attachment-based approach. We didn't understand that if I want this young person to regulate and calm and problem solve and do some logical reasoning and thinking, well, it's my job as the secure, loving caregiver on the other side to have an interaction that develops and coaches and teaches that baby to do that. So at the time, we had, I call it a bunch of tricks, tactics. Trying to trick the kids into doing certain behaviors. Don't throw stuff at me, but I'm just giving you my experience. We had a point and level system where we were. You can call it point, level, color system, whatever. So that baby ran up and said, let me tell you about my day. And I said, all right, shoot, tell me. And he said, oh, I did this and I had such a good day and I didn't do anything today. And then I said, let me see your point sheet from school. What do y'all think that baby did? Listen to this definition. Working model of a responsive, loving, reliable caregiver and of a self that is worthy of love. I'm supposed to, in this interaction, this attachment dance, I'm supposed to be creating and developing self-worth, self-confidence, self-esteem in this baby. And I said, with that trick and that tactic, I said, let me see your point sheet. And that baby did just like this. Shame and guilt, covered in shame and guilt. So with those old tricks and tactics that are not attachment based, I said, well, you know what that means. What do you think he did? You said you had a good day, but your teacher in first period said you gave her a good old Tennessee cussing. Now what we know about trauma, that baby can't even think back to 9 o'clock in the morning. He can only think as far as the hand in front of him. And when he was talking to me about his good day, he was actually talking about the last 15 minutes of his last class. Right? with the old tricks and tactics, right? I said, well, you can't do X. I'm taking away your privileges. I'm giving you consequences. Think about this healthy attachment dance, which we're supposed to do. And then I said, you can't do X. And then this is what it said. You black bald head. Boop, 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 boop. And for 45 minutes or so, we're doing an unhealthy attachment dance. We're supposed to be connected and we're disconnected and going apart. I'm supposed to put him under my wing and teach him and coach him and develop him and grow him, and I push him away. And this doesn't make sense, y'all. I push a baby away that his ways of surviving are to fight, to run. He can't figure it out by himself. I got to put that baby under my wing in this attachment-based approach. We talk about trauma-informed. Howard Bath, he big in the field of trauma-informed care for years. And he's wrote a couple of articles, published articles, the 3 pillars of trauma-informed care, the 3 pillars of trauma-wise care. And he talks about these 3 essential things or elements that you must have to be trauma-wise, trauma-competent, trauma-informed, whatever the words are. Like I said earlier, let's stop getting caught up in the words. Look at what we're doing in the practice. So what he says, and think about this in your house, at your organization, okay? Ask yourself the question, simply, are we connected in whatever environment we're in? What I just described in that behavior situation with the kid who got off the bus, if I ask myself that question at that time, I can say in full truth and honesty, no. Don't just ask yourself, are you connected with your babies? Think about at your job. How many leaders we got in the room? When we travel the globe all the time, when we talk about implementing TBRI into organizations, this is what I tell leaders. You better not ask your staff to do TBRI if you ain't TBRIing your people. That's hypocritical. That's a lie, right? So how are we connected? How are we bringing people close? Y'all listen to this right here as it relates to our kids. When I first heard this and talking about TBRI, it hurt me real bad. I heard Karyn say, the most dysregulated, out of control child should be the closest to you. I said, wow. Wow. Because from a connected standpoint, everybody in the house doesn't want to be around that kid who's been cussing, fussing, kicking, spitting, throwing fits. Nobody want to be around the kid who the school keeps calling you to come pick them up. Or the school calls and said, hey, we're missing a few cell phones. Not saying your kid did it, but that baby right there that you have in your head, you got to put them under your wing. They need to be right beside you. They need the most coaching. Felt safety. Physical safety is great. We all want to be physically safe in our environments, right? Would y'all agree? Okay. Physical safety, safety in general, I want you to think about it from an internal standpoint. I want you to think about it from a stress system standpoint. The brain and the nervous system. Okay? Earlier when I talked about using those tricks and tactics to try to trick a kid to doing the right behaviors, and we use the point and level system, making the connection to felt safety and having a brain and the body and the nervous system that's calm and regulated, those points and levels are trying to trick the nervous system, but hear me, you can't trick the nervous system. It's impossible to do. You cannot trick the autonomic nervous system. You cannot trick the autonomic nervous system. Did I say it again? You cannot trick the autonomic nervous system. I'm going to put the words into practice. I just want to say one more time. Tonight, when you tell your baby it's time to go to bed and they say, you go to bed, you can use the sleep. You need the beauty sleep. You go to bed. Don't start throwing out a bunch of tricks and tactics saying, I'm taking your cell phone away for 3 months. You can't go to the baseball game tomorrow. You won't have dessert at dinner all this week. It's just water for you this week. No juice, no milk. I've done that a lot of times before the shift, right? But hear me out. What that encourages in the nervous system is everybody just simply put is walking around on pins and needles in the house. Anybody ever had that experience of walking around on pins and needles? You're walking around on pins and needles because the environment is not an environment that feels safe internally. Everybody's stress system is sky high. So what that means is, if I continue to use those tricks and tactics for that baby at bedtime, what that means is that nervous system is still sky high. So it's not that I don't want to go to sleep, Dad. I can't. There's no felt safety in this house. Whose job is it to create that felt safety? Us, the grown folks. Right? Us. Dr. Bruce Perry says this, powerful quote. He's a leading traumatologist across the world. He said, to ask a child to do something that they cannot do is biologically disrespectful. It's not that they don't want to, y'all. That baby can't. Felt safety is important. Evidence-based, just real quick. We have a research team, a fabulous research team at the Institute. And in a variety, we're looking at, developing evidence for effectiveness of TBRI, training of TBRI, implementation of TBRI, lots of different research-related things taking place. But I want to share this. Talking about Karyn again, I would follow Karyn around and I would hear her say, people would walk up and say, well, Karyn, Dr. Purvis, how do you know TBRI works? They're looking for the evidence. We need the evidence. Y'all hear me? We need the evidence to disrupt these patterns systemically, organizationally. We need the evidence. But this is what she would say when people would ask. You know TBRI is working when the love, the joy, and the laughter return to your life. I don't need an effectiveness study to tell me that. Whole child. What we know and what you see here are the principles and strategies: empowering, connecting, correcting. And so in our team, Amanda and Carrie and Kato and Katie, they're going to walk through each of the principles and strategies and go deeper in the water with each of the principles and strategies. But as it relates to what is TBRI and some of the foundational lenses, I want to say this. If our babies in the trauma, relational trauma, toxic stress, adverse childhood experiences, again, whatever you want to call it, okay? Those experiences impact the whole child. So if those experiences impact the whole child, the intervention needs to impact the whole child. Does that make sense? So think about this. That point and level sheet system sheet that I talked about earlier. We know. You're going to go deeper in the water with this. We know the trauma impacts the brain, the body, the biology, the belief system, and the behavior. But that point and level system only focused on what? The behavior. So there's no surprise before TBRI, we didn't see a bit of change. Let me back that up. Redo. We saw change. We just saw the unhealthy patterns of behavior continue to escalate and get worse and worse and more intense and more intense. Does that make sense? So the change was happening. It just wasn't for the good. That's why we would have a 10-year-old walk into our building and in our program, and this baby had been to 15 to 16 different homes. I'm not trying to shame us, especially if you're experiencing this. Have experienced it. Are you living in it? Some of us living in what I'm talking about right now today. But that baby to have 15 different placements, it's not okay, y'all. So when we talk about the intervention needs to be whole child, okay? Through TBRI principles and strategies, when we talk about the empowering principles, Cato's going to walk through that. It's intentionally at the bottom of the circle here because it's foundational to supporting the brain and the body. Correcting or shaping behaviors are the least important of all of these principles and strategies. So for those of you listening and waiting for the correcting principle session, spoiler alert, I'm sorry, but it's the least important of the principles and strategies. Why? Because whole child, I need to make sure that my baby's brain, body, and biology is good. Through hydration, through snacks regularly, through physical activity, through paying attention to the senses, through paying attention to the environment. Earlier when I said I went to that high school, you know what, a lot of, anytime, and for people who work in schools, think about this. I've been to a lot of schools, elementary, middle, high school, and you have conversations about behavior in the high school, and I hear over and over again. One time we asked the high school to send us their top 10 behaviors. And they wanted to focus on, what did I say? The behaviors. But when we backed up and said, well, let's look at this from an empowering standpoint, supporting the brain and the body, what does the environment look like from a sensory standpoint? Do you have an attachment-rich, sensory-rich environment? This is what we learned. All 10 of those behaviors were during transition times, which is part of empowering principles. You know how many daily transitions our babies have? So what that meant was, and this is disturbing, like schools are like, oh my goodness. Because we will say, if you think about this, if I have a kid who their stress system is sky high, and what happens every time to tell us we need to change class? The most annoying thing ever. Who would wake up to that in the morning with your alarm clock? None of us. So they're trying to comprehend all this information and take in the math facts, which is about problem solving, which I need this part of the brain to be able to problem solve. But if I'm a kid who's living downstairs, I'm trying to focus and pay attention to the teacher, but it's not that I don't want to, teacher. I can't. because of my history, because of my experiences, I'm already stressed out because maybe that person is not having a connected interaction with me and they're saying, focus, pay attention. If you don't do this, I'm going to call or send you to the principal's office. Those are very threatening. That's fear-based interactions, not attachment-rich interactions. So what that means is when the bell rings, boop, our babies get a flash of a second of a relief because I can get out of this environment. But then my stress system stays sky high because of that noise. Now I got to walk down this hallway with, you remember the high school? 1,500 students. Y'all been around teenagers? You know what they smell like? You been around teenagers? Yeah. You know what they smell like? So you got all these smells, these sounds, patting feet on the tile floors, backpacks ruffling. Maybe they have lockers still at this school. They slamming backpacks. All of this stuff is overwhelming, which is why we got to support the body and the brain through our empowering principles. Action. Connecting. I've talked a lot about connecting. Katie's going to walk us through the connecting principles. And I just want to say this. I'm not going to go into the details, but I want to be loud and clear when I say this, y'all, because as I'm sharing this information, I can only think about the babies I hear about or I see and I talk to across the globe. Our babies are in pain. But they're counting on us. I want to say this. You can't give what you ain't got. Y'all know what I mean by that? You can't take a child to a place or their parent to a place that you haven't been yourself. I can't do one without the other. In order to change this from a connected place, I got to change me. And then, definitely not going to talk about the correcting principle because I said it's the least important. But do we have to deal with behavior? Yes. I'll be the first to tell you, if I'm interacting with some kids, cursing me or putting your hands on me, Kim, is not okay. No. I'm not going to do the disrespect. No. Calling me a black bald head, nope, try that again. I can have interactions, I can shape behaviors and teach kids how to do it the right way through a healthy attachment dance as I'm doing that. Carrie's going to talk through that in the correcting principles. TBRI is also multi-systemic, and this is going to lead us to a couple of happenings of TBRI across the world. We say this often, and we see this. This is not just in Texas that we see this. This is not just in Nashville. This is not just in Illinois. We see this in Bogota, Colombia. We see this in the Philippines. We see this in Ethiopia. And what I mean is we have to have the mindset and the approach. When you talk about what is TBRI, TBRI is not, and you've heard me say this, is not just for the kid or just for these group of people that's having all of the problems, right? We have the mind frame of everybody who has a hand in the life of a child needs to be speaking the language, having the understanding and the practices of TBRI. Okay? So if you think about you know, the impact on the child, the impact on the family, the impact on the organization, the impact on the systems of care or communities, as you see in this visual right here, all of those layers matter and have an impact of what goes on in my house. The way I interact with my baby matters. The way the school interacts with my baby matters. The way the church interacts with my baby at Sunday school and at church. Kids school matters. the way my job of the grown folks, what happens at my job impacts how I interact at the house, right? So everybody, multi-systemic, speaking the same language. I want to just share a couple of examples. So what you see here is a visual of a barbershop, and I'm not going to name the state of the city, because I don't want you to go there bothering them. But at this barbershop, we had some folks who learned about TBRI, and they said, we got to take TBRI to where people live. So they took it to, as far as statistics, crime, poverty, drugs, all of the things. They checked all the boxes. They went and talked to the giants in the community. Y'all know who the giants are? They went to go talk to Miss Oridale, who sits on her porch, and she know all the business in town. And they say, hey, how do we get TBRI where people live? And they say, you need to go to the barbershop, because guess what? All of our people who are impacted by trauma grew up in the barbershop. And by the way, they're already talking about the local news, international news, politics, sports. You might as well throw trauma, TBRI in there. So for 10 weeks, y'all, they started doing these conversations. They didn't take these PowerPoints and slides like I have inside the shop. The shop is still, people are cutting hair as they're in the shop. I literally went to go visit the shop. And as I'm watching this go down and they're talking about correcting and connecting inside the shop, right? I saw somebody come in and they were doing check-ins. Y'all remember the engine plate I talked about? They were doing check-in. And I saw a guy walk through the door and said, hey, what's going on? He dapping up everybody. And they said, the people facilitating said, we're doing a check-in right now. How are you? He said, oh, I'm good. I'm in the green. Boom. He goes and sit down and listen to this, y'all. This was the first time, I want you to hear what I'm about to say. This is the first time in my career, my life, I had an experience where the people in the community, something else bad didn't have to happen to a family or individual to go find TBRI. Let me put it in a different way. That mama that had 3 babies in that barbershop and I'm sitting right beside her, she didn't have to get her babies removed to go get this information. Take this where people live. If you comfortable, get uncomfortable. It ain't about you. Figure it out. I was sitting in, this is really funny. I was sitting in a pub in a city in the UK a few months ago. And evidently in England and the UK, they're like, we had a bunch of meetings in the pub. That's the culture, the context. I said, okay. And so it was a group of professionals. It was some grandparents, right, in the room. They had been through some TBRI classes. They had been through one TBRI class, and we're going to where people live. Okay? And I'm talking to this grandpa who's ex-retired Marine, caring for his 3-year-old grandbaby and his 4-year-old grandbaby. And he said, Daren, I ain't never done none of this stuff y'all talking about. I'm ex-Marine. Or Marine, they don't say ex, I'm Marine. So we're having a conversation, and I said, well, what's been going on? How's this been working for you? He said, Daren, the stuff works. It was during Christmas, the holidays. He said, my 3-year-old was having a meltdown. Before, I would have walked to that baby, screaming and yelling, fear-based, shame-based. And he said, that lady, Leonie, who taught the class, she talked about playful interaction and behavior matching. He said, I got on my hands and knees and got on the floor. When I did that, my baby hopped on my lap. He said, my grandbaby hopped on my lap. I held my baby. Something that would have lasted 30 or 40 minutes before, we were done in 5 minutes. He said, Daren, that's the best Christmas gift I could have ever got. One more thing. We got a group of people. I'm not going to name the state. I don't want y'all going to bother. Guess where these people live? Y'all follow me? A majority of the folks here, guess where they family members are? They too were disconnected. They too, in showing up, I've been in this room right here, sitting in front of about 75 or 80 men in this correctional facility, y'all. And I'm having a convo. Our team is in here, and we're having convos, and we're talking about attachment, adverse childhood experiences. And I'm hearing guys in this room say, so Daren, KPICD, Amanda, Troy, y'all are telling me, it said it makes sense. I've never known this. All of these adversities as a child that we're talking about, I've been through those myself, never knew. No wonder I've lived a life in the penal system. One of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. I'm gonna leave you with this note from one of the people locked up. I don't say inmates, I say people. People. Stop giving our babies a number, a case number. I was talking to somebody a couple weeks ago, and he kept on saying a diagnosis as he was talking about his baby. I said, don't do that. Don't do it in front of me. Do it somewhere else. Your baby got a name. One of the people wrote this rap. And I'm gonna have to do it this way because I can't read it, it's too small. I want you to check this out. And I'm gonna end on this note. He had been going through TBRI classes. And this is after one of the sessions he wrote this. He said, "No longer trapping while I'm making it happen. Building connections, empowering the correction was magic. Did you grow up without a father? Was your mother an addict? Left us abandoned to the world or either smothered by traffic? We needed intervention, found out some pieces were missing. I was puzzled, pictured, muddled, emotions sorted by children, afraid to talk about my problems, felt like your trauma was different." Listen to this statement, y'all. Like, why would I be scared of jail if I grew up in a prison? That's my downstairs brain talking. When I called for help, nobody came. As a little kid, I just wanted hugs with a lot of love, so why was I to blame? Now you and I are the parents with the power to change dynamics. Replace curse words with a warm voice and a leather belt with some understanding. I'll dress up, sip teacups, roll fire trucks while behavior matching. Provide them with choices. I'm here to let you know that your voice matters. She'll tell you anything, maybe everything once trust is established. Grow up to be anything you want to be with the right attachments. They said our voice ain't matter. We knew that was a lie. Maybe we needed somebody to give us the time, different levels of engagement. I love seeing your eyes. There'll be no hurts when we're speaking gentle and kind. Basing relations off of trust can end up saving our lives. We both feel good about the choices when we compromise. Ask us how we did it. We say TBRI. TBRI, imagine that. Last verse. I came up kind of hard. It left emotional damage. Not with the huggy, touchy, feely, ain't want no physical affection. I know it come from my past trauma. That's why we feeling neglected. I paint this picture, let you figure why I come off aggressive. Sharing power builds trust. Now you and your kid are connecting. They know one thing, I ask for help, then you'd be happy to help me. We know it's time for a change, use our voice as a weapon. So pay attention and just listen. Y'all hear that? You just gotta listen. It's time to do better. You see the way that I was raised up, your emotions don't matter. I always know I had some help, but I was avoiding attachments. Let the past just be the past and let it go with compassion. Don't want my child to be afraid, so our behavior is matching. We're probably laughing or wrestling, play games, being imaginative. Because they ain't asked to be alive, let them know that you cherish them. We know the feelings of resentment. Now let's change and let's be different. Thank y'all for your time.